U.S. fighter jet shot down by Iran. A U.S. official confirms to ABC News one of the crew members has been rescued. Let's get right to Chief Global Affairs.
The president has now been briefed on a downed F-15 fighter jet in Iran. This is
according to a U.S. official. It does appear that this F-15E, it's often known as a strike eagle, that it was shot down by Iran.
F-15E in Iran was rescued by special forces Sunday morning local time, according to multiple U.S. officials. The second crew.
This is the nightmare scenario. A U.S. Strike Eagle down, one pilot rescued, and a second still being hunted inside Iran. This is the moment every military planner fears and every news desk scrambles for at once. A U.S. F-15E Strike Eagle reportedly shot down over Iran, 2 American crew members forced out over hostile territory, one already rescued and the other still somewhere on the ground as the clock keeps ticking. And the reason this story hits so hard is because this is not just about a jet going down. This is about what happens in the minutes after impact. It's about whether the crew got out. It's about whether rescue teams can reach them before local forces, state media, militias, or opportunists do. And now, according to the reporting cited in this script, that exact race is underway inside Iran. Fox News first pushed the urgency of it. The president had been briefed. A statement from CENTCOM was expected. Search helicopters were already being talked about. And almost immediately, the story shifted from one headline to one question: where are the pilots? The aircraft at the center of this is the F-15E Strike Eagle, the 2-seat strike version of the F-15. This is not some light platform flying on the edge of a war zone. This is a serious combat aircraft, built for hard missions, built to carry heavy payloads, and built to hit the ground war from the air. The script describes it as a fighter bomber that can carry multiple 2,000-pound bombs, with one pilot flying and the other crew member acting as the weapons systems operator. In other words, there were 2 Americans on board, and from the moment that jet went down, this instantly became a rescue story as much as a combat story. The early details were chaotic, but some pieces stood out. Open source material reportedly showed the pilot seat from the F-15 on the ground, which strongly suggested at least one ejection took place. The seat was there, the pilot was not. That alone changed the entire mood of the coverage, because once you know someone got out, the story is no longer just wreckage. Now it's survival. Now it's evasion. Now it's extraction. And then came what may have been the most revealing visual of all: video allegedly showing 2 search and rescue helicopters being refueled mid-air in daylight. That matters because, according to the reporting in the script, this was not some routine transit. These were helicopters operating low, in or near contested space, in daylight, which suggests urgency, and real urgency. You do not expose rescue aircraft like that unless commanders believe time matters. You do that when you think someone may still be alive and recoverable. That urgency only intensified when Axios, according to the script, reported that both crew members had ejected safely, that U.S. Special Forces had located and rescued one crew member alive in Iranian territory, and that the search for the second crew member was still ongoing. That is the pivot point of the whole story. One is alive, one is out, one is receiving medical attention, but the second crew member is still missing, and that means every minute after the ejection becomes more dangerous than the one before it. The White House angle raised the stakes even further. The script says White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt confirmed to Axios that the president had been briefed. That matters politically, operationally, and symbolically. Once the president is briefed, this is no longer just a battlefield incident or a developing combat report. It becomes a top-level national security event. It becomes something watched not only by military commanders and intelligence analysts, but by allies, adversaries, the media, and millions of people online waiting for the next update. And there was another layer that made this even more explosive. According to the script, Iranian officials told Axios they canceled planned strikes in the relevant areas of Iran so they would not interfere with U.S. search and rescue operations. seconds. That tells you two things immediately. First, the area was active enough that planned strikes were on the table. Second, the rescue effort was important enough that Allied military activity had to adjust around it. That is not a small operational footnote. That is a major signal that the rescue window was being treated as critical. Now step back and look at the broader atmosphere around this story. According to the script, Iranian state media was not just reporting on the incident, it was reportedly showing video of people trying to find the pilots, encouraging the public to join the search, and even putting out some kind of reward or bounty. Later in the script, that pressure escalates further, with references to residents being urged to hunt for the pilot or pilots, and a governor in the southwest province reportedly saying that whoever captured or killed the crew would be commended by the government. That changes the psychological picture instantly. Because the threat is no longer just organized military forces, the threat becomes the crowd, the threat becomes local opportunists, the threat becomes the random unknown. If you are a downed aircrew member on the ground in enemy territory, you are not only worried about radar, missiles, or armored units, you are worried about who sees you first. Is it a rescue team? Is it a patrol? Is it somebody chasing a reward? That is the nightmare scenario built into this story, and it's exactly why the commentary in the original script feels so intense. At the same time, the credibility battle was already raging. One of the on-air voices in the source script makes a major point of saying Iranian media is state-controlled and has an obvious incentive to turn this into propaganda. The script also says Iranian television had, over the previous 32 days or so, repeatedly claimed to have shot down F-35 fighter jets, and that those claims
U.S.
had
official
not
has
been
also
true.
confirmed
That
that the jet
background
was
is
indeed
important because
shot
it
down.
explains
This
why
was
there was
hostile
such
enemy
caution
fire.
around
Now,
confirming
all
the
of these
F-15
pilots
story
and crew
in the
members,
first
the
place.
weapons systems
The script
officer,
makes
are
clear that
trained
the
in what is
reporting had
called
been held
SEER,
back
and
until
that
there was
is
enough
survive,
independent
evade,
confirmation to
resist,
say
and
the jet
escape.
really
appears to be.
had gone
The
down.
location of where the
So this
aircraft went
became a
down looks to be
war
very
on two
rugged
levels
terrain,
at
so that
once:
may have
the
played into
rescue
it. But
operation on the
now that
ground
the
and the
Iranians know we
information
have
war in
one,
the
and there
media.
may be
On
still
the
another
ground,
out
the
there,
U.S. side
they're
was
going to be
racing to
looking for them
recover a missing aircrew
well,
member.
most of
In
the
the media
military will be
space,
focused on
everyone was fighting to
rescuing that
control
second
the meaning
aviator
of what had
pilot for
happened. Was this
deconfliction
a
so they don't hit
one-off
each other as
combat
they
loss
eject.
in a
So
much larger
in this case,
operation,
they shouldn't
or
have
was
been
it
very
proof
far
that the
away. So
claims
that's
of
what's
control
concerning is
over
that they
Iranian
were able to pick
airspace
up
had been
one, but either couldn't
overstated?
find or get
That
to the
became
other
one of the
pilot. We
central
do see that
arguments
at
in the
least
script, and this is where the
Martha was
air
alluding to is
superiority
a
debate
tandem seat, so it's
explodes.
front and
The
back. And so when
commentary
there's an
repeatedly
ejection,
argues that the
the weapons
United
systems
States
officer
has
in the
air
back seat
supremacy or
goes
air
out first, and
superiority
then
over Iran. Then, anticipating criticism,
had been
makes an
hiding
important
with
distinction. Air
essentially no more than
superiority
a
does not
pistol
mean
to
zero
defend
threats from the
himself
ground.
for the
It
last
means
48
there are
hours.
no meaningful air-to-air
And so,
threats overhead. In other words, the
multiple
skies can
U.S.
still be
military
dominated
assets
by one side,
came into
while
the
portable
pilot
missiles,
of that
hidden launchers,
F-15.
ground fire,
However,
and
they were not
low-visibility
able
ambush
to,
threats
as you
remain
pointed out, they
dangerous.
were not able
The
to
script spells it out with a
rescue the
comparison.
weapons
Planes
systems
have been shot
officer.
down in many wars, despite
The
one
weapons
side
systems
controlling the
officer
air.
play along
That
with
point matters
intelligence
because the political
capabilities,
backlash
cyber
was already
operations came into
building
play, even
inside the
our
narrative.
space
The
assets
script
came into
references
play
Defense
in order
Secretary
to
Pete
rescue this
Hegseth
American.
and others claiming
Hyrule,
U.S. and
just how a
Israeli
search and
forces had
rescue mission
achieved air
unfolds in a
superiority,
case
and then pushes
like
back
this.
against what it expects critics to say
Sure.
next,
So
that if a plane got shot
we have
down, then
assets
those
in the U.S.
claims must have
military
been
that
false.
this
The
is all they
rebuttal in the
do,
script
train
is
for a
direct.
combat
No,
system.
it says, air
Or it's also
superiority
known
is
in
a
some,
technical term.
for the
It does not
Navy, the
mean
Marines,
nothing can
will call
shoot
this
at us from the
traffic.
ground.
It's
It means the
tactical
enemy is
recovery of
not
aircraft and
contesting the
personnel.
skies with
But
aircraft.
in this
That
particular
distinction
mission,
becomes one of the major framing battles in
one of
the
the units
entire
that was
commentary.
really
And the reason that
key
distinction
in
matters
this
so much
was
is because
skilled
this
not
was
only in
described
combat
as the
search and
first
rescue,
downing of a
but
U.S. jet in an
our
operation involving
trained
thousands
medical
of
professionals.
sorties over Iran.
When I
That
was in
line in the
Afghanistan in
source is doing
2009,
heavy work.
serving with my
It's
Marines,
trying to
it
shrink
was
the
the
loss
pararescue men
strategically,
who
even
were
while
who would
acknowledging its
swoop
emotional weight. The message is basically this: yes, this is serious. Yes, this is dangerous. Yes, a U.S. aircraft went down. But no, this does not automatically mean the broader operation is collapsing. In fact, the original speaker argues the opposite, saying the fact that it happened only once after thousands of sorties is a sign of how successful the operation has been overall. That's classic high-stakes war commentary. One event, two narratives. One side sees exposure, the other sees exception. But whatever angle you take on the larger air war, the most gripping part of this story remains the missing crew member. Because once a pilot ejects into hostile terrain, the situation becomes brutally simple and brutally personal. Can they stay hidden? Can they signal safely? Can they move? Are they injured? Are they alone? How far did they drift from the wreckage? Are local people already looking? How close are rescue aircraft really willing to get in broad daylight? The original script leans hard into that uncertainty for good reason. It points out that these crew members would have had survival and evasion training, referred to in the script as SEER training, and also would have carried specialized equipment designed to help friendly forces find them. That could include locator devices, signals, and other tools that help rescue teams track a downed aircrew member. But the script also makes a very important point. Just because a pilot has a signaling device does not mean it is always safe to use it. If the missing crew member believed hostile forces, local searchers, or anyone else might be close enough to detect movement or react to a signal, staying dark may have been the safer choice. That uncertainty is exactly what makes combat search and rescue